You're working with other, co-founders and founders of these nonprofits that you've started, probably a large portion of your day. What is one of the, say, more challenging things that you're working with in your environment? Is it the founder not knowing? Is it the initiative way too big? Is it something's not clear?
No, I think more often than not, the hardest part is really finding great leadership and keeping them. And again, we don't, in the nonprofit space, we don't have the tools that you do in the for-profit space.
You don't have the leverage.
You really don't. You can't offer them a lot more money because, you have a set budget and you have donors who are, basically paying to keep the lights on. You don't have stock options, so you don't have those handcuffs. It's just hard.
Yeah. Yeah, you like you said, you've talked about that. It's not an easy fix there. And in your opinion, where do you think is the place in the process of starting? Again, I'm going back to that because you've done so much of it. In the place of starting something, where is the challenge? Where is the point that the tipping point for you that you believe? Is there some tipping point that you're like, hey, if we can get to this stage, it's more likely to be successful, versus if we don't get there, it's probably not going to be successful? Do you think there's, a milestone, call it a milestone, call it?
I think there is a milestone. And for most nonprofits, that milestone is whether or not you have a predictable revenue stream. Pure and simple. If you can really leverage that, whether it's coming from donors or whether it's coming from an annual dinner or something like that, once it's predictable, okay, then the risk factor I think goes way down. So that for me is probably the most important thing.
And do you, in your your process, are you looking for that? Are you driving towards that? Are you saying to the leader of that nonprofit, hey, find the predictable thing?
Absolutely. Yeah, no question. And in fact, with most nonprofits that I've dealt with, one of the things that I always like to see is the balance sheet, and I like to see at least a year's operating costs in the bank. So that if things were to go bad, where the donor base goes away, or the annual gala dinner goes away, that at least you have a year to basically recover.
Yeah.
And most nonprofits, unfortunately, aren't in that position. Far from it. Most nonprofits are living day to day.
In your process of working with founders, and I call them founders because they're co-founders, or sometimes you're helping them start their deal, whether it's a nonprofit or not. Where do you think that they lack? What's the piece of thing that you wish more of them had? Whether it was Mary when she was starting, or whether it's some of the people you've already worked with in the last 20 nonprofits. What do you think is if you could pick out a couple things, like, this is what I see happen more than less?
Well, when I think of the nonprofit space, whether you have the title executive director or CEO or whatever your title is, if you're the head guy, the thing that I wish more of those CEOs had was really the ability to raise the funding, whether it comes from events, whether it comes from philanthropists, whether it's thinking about creating a business stream of revenue. I wish more CEOs had the ability and the talent to actually make that happen. It gets back to thinking of nonprofits more like for-profit companies. How can you raise the capital because you're not going to continually go back to the well, right, every year to go ask your investors to give you more money. That typically doesn't happen. And yet that's exactly what happens in the nonprofit space. And sooner or later, people get tired.